So my first question is your story about how you became a Sister of St. Louis, how you felt called, what influences you might have had, just that whole story.
Okay, well, I'm going to start a little bit further back than just the call. I was born in Ohio, Maple Heights, Ohio, outside of Cleveland, and my dad was mail carrier, and he could not stand the brutal winters in Cleveland, and he always talked about wanting to move to California. And I have two younger brothers, we're close in age, and after so long, my dad got a transfer from Cleveland to Whittier to work in the post office in Whittier. So he drove across the country by car, and we were going to come by train. My grandmother lived with us at that point, too, his mother. So he got partway across the country, and he calls my mother, and he says, I made a mistake. I'm turning around. She says, keep driving, because she'd listened to him for years about sunny California and wanted to get there. So he landed in Whittier at the post office there. We came across the country, my two brothers and myself and my mom, and waved goodbye on a rainy day to my grandmother outside the train window, and came across the country by train. Met my dad, went to Big Boys for hamburger day, rented a house in Whittier, and then eventually my mom and dad bought a house in La Puente, which is where St. Louis of France grade school is, which was staffed by the Sisters of St. Louis at that time. So my mom wanted myself and my younger brother Richard, about 2 years younger than me, to go to Catholic school. But in those days, the classrooms were full, like I said earlier today. I was number 63 when I finally got into the school. I'd come home from public school, my mom would make me put a dress on, we'd walk, we only had one car, my dad had the car, we'd walk down to the school and meet with Mother Dolorosa in a chair, not too dissimilar than that chair, with a high back. And Mother Dolorosa, who is still alive in Ireland, would say, oh, hello, Mrs. Fitzer, and my mom would say, is there room in the school? She said, no, I'm sorry, Mrs. Fitzer, there's no room. So we did that every single Friday for I don't know how long, until one day when we get up there on the Friday afternoon and wait in the office, this dark office, she comes in and she says, there is room in the school. So the following Monday, there we were, and she walked us to the classroom, and she took Richard to first grade first, and she bent over, she's tall, thin, with his pointing finger, she says, you're going to be a good boy, aren't you? And I thought, I wonder who told on him. Anyway, so that was how we got into the school, and the Sisters of St. Louis taught there. And they were really, I mean, they were huge classes. I was a good student. But the teachers were really very special. I wanted to learn to play the piano, and I took piano lessons with Sister Agatha, who now lives in Ireland. Sister Cabrini was my 8th grade teacher. And I remember writing an essay or paragraphs in 8th grade. I thought, what did you want to do? And I thought, well, I might want to be a sister. And then she wrote it on the paper, oh, we would want you, or something like that. So, I mean, it started with wanting to be like the wonderful sisters that had taught me in grade school, like Sister Karen Collier. I went to Bishop Amat High School, and the Sisters of St. Louis were on the faculty there. It's a co-ed high school. And was staffed by women religious from a variety of different communities. But the best teachers that I had were the Sisters of St. Louis. Sister Frances, who was my math teacher for several years, and she was just wonderful. It was 6th period, we walk in there, and she's bright and funny, and we're bright and funny back, and it was just a fun class. Sister Ann Kavanagh, who's in Ireland, has been our general superior, also taught me religion and math. But we had Immaculate Heart Sisters. The others were good teachers, but these women were special. So when it comes time to be a senior and you're thinking, but what am I going to do next? I thought, well, I mean, I was a good student. I had scholarships to college. And I thought, I would really like to give this a try. Well, it was not the happiest moment of my mom's life when I said, that this is what I was thinking of doing. She cried. My dad says, don't worry, once they get to know her, they'll send her back to us.
Why do you say that?
Well, our temperaments are a lot alike. And while I got along better with my mom, my dad and I often came to, moments where I would storm out of the room. Anyway, so in September I graduated high school in 1966. On September the 8th, my two brothers, and my mom and my dad and I came here with all the things that you were supposed to bring when you entered in those days. I don't know if you've heard any of the lists.
I would like you to tell us again, because it's a hilarious list. You're
Yeah.
like, Irish, Irish lace was on the list? Or?
Well, it wasn't on our list. There was, like, you were supposed to bring silverware and a napkin, and my mom was a good seamstress, like black skirts, black blouses. You ever try to find a black sweater and a black blouse in the month of August? Or yeah, it was August when we went shopping. And they had to have snaps on it. White nightgown, I mean, all white. So my mom sewed it. I said, Mom, put pretty flowers on the pit pockets. Make them blue or something. And we had to put everything that we brought on the beds in our little cubicles. And I remember you'd have a senior sister, like Sister Karen's group would have been angels to our group. And one of them, who was Irish, says, you need to get your cutlery and your serviettes. I go, I don't know if I have that. Silverware, napkin. So, I mean, and in my group there were 9 who entered with me, some from Ireland and several from here, from Louisville and other schools too. Today there's 2 of us, Sister Bridget Ayler and myself, but I still have friends who were with us in the journey and are still good friends.
You keep in touch?
To several of them, yes.
That's nice.
And this is our 50th year from high school. And one of my good friends who went to Alma too and entered with me, we're going to our 50th reunion in the fall.
She entered, but she didn't stay.
She didn't stay.
Yeah.
No, Marilyn didn't stay. But
Yeah.
we're still good friends. And several of the Irish-born ones too are still.
So the Irish ones didn't, they came to here to be novices? They didn't stay in Ireland?
Well, they had a program in Ireland where some of the young women went to a particular school knowing that if they wanted to, they could enter the community in California. So for a number of years, there were, like in my group, there were 3 from Ireland. I brought some pictures today too, I can show them to you later, who entered with us. And I'm still very friendly with, her name was Una Graham, and she'd never heard of graham crackers till she came here. She said, they named them after me.
Now, is she in Ireland?
She was from Ireland. She's married and lives in New York, and she has 3 girls who are married and have children, and we keep in good contact. So they came out here, but now they came. The education system is different, so they had a year of high school still to finish. So well, we might have been going to the junior college. They were taking classes down in the high school to get a high school diploma to be able to get into college.
Oh,
So
okay.
I mean, those are fun days. And we were always in trouble for doing something, making too much noise or whatever, talking after the night bell went or whatever.
So you were saying that your mom, oh yeah, you've told us. I love the stories of the reactions of the family, and your mom was upset. She was upset because
I'm the only girl, and yeah, for her. I mean, in retrospect, when you're 18, maybe it doesn't sink in as much. She was sad, and you know, why don't you go to college first? I mean, I was torn between that too, but I thought, I just want to give this a try and let's see how it goes, and you know. So she really was, I mean, really generous. She didn't say, no, you can't, but she wasn't, you know, happy. And she's the Italian one, which I would get letters, you know, you could get your letters, and sometimes they would be slit open, they would have been read. And my mom being Italian, like, what you eat is important to you. And one day at one of the lectures, the novice director was talking about, you know, and what are you telling your parents? Because some of your parents are asking about what you're having for meals, and that's not something we put in letters. And I'm sitting there thinking, she read my mom's letter. You know, because, I mean, there you have a cultural difference, which wouldn't be the norm with Irish people, but, you know, Italians, like, what do you have for dinner? Are you eating enough?
you're not eating enough, eat more.
Yeah, so, I mean, those were things, I mean, cultural adjustments even back then that
That's interesting.
you take it in stride and you're young, you can kind of like, oh, that hurts a little bit, because my mom didn't mean that. But
She was
I
caring
mean,
about
now I'd
you.
have the courage to say, hey, let's look at the cultural differences here. You know, this is the United States of America. But in those days, you really didn't say that to your novice director.
You just didn't say a word.
No. But your inside is like, that's not okay.
Which is a little bit of the, well, maybe the Irish sisters felt that way when they entered as well, but you being American probably had a little bit more of the American independent, wait a minute.
Yeah,
you know.
but got tamped down a bit though, sometimes.
I can imagine. Well, speaking of that what's interesting, and I was saying this to Sister Karen and Judy, here it is 1966, and the secular world is kind of blowing up, and you've got Vietnam, and you've got, students sitting in, and you've got, it's just a big change in society. And then you have Vatican II, where there's a big change in the church. I guess what's interesting to me is the choice in right in the middle of all of that change, of just being clear-minded and saying, no, this is what I want to do. But maybe that's me looking back and thinking you probably weren't aware, everybody, of the change. But if you could just speak a little bit to that, all that change happening in society, and maybe even how it affected your family. What did your family think about Vatican II? And were you thinking about Vatican II or about any of these changes?
Well, I would say that it was certainly one of the, thinking about today, I did a lot of reflecting and looking back at notes and letters I've written, and I whipped off the shelf my documents of Vatican II, published in 1963. I mean, when I was in high school, we had really good, the Immaculate Heart Sisters, who we can talk about later. I had one of them for a senior religion class, and we looked at the documents of Vatican II. But I don't think at that age I really could absorb what the meaning of it was. I don't think I had enough of a sense of the importance. Now I do, and not long after, maybe afterwards, but not at that point. And I mean, what I used to say is that the only constant in this life is change. If it's this way, it will probably be different tomorrow. Like just even the dress that we wore, when we made first vows, we were in the long black habit with the cape, with the cross, with the veil, with a little bit of white, not the square box. By the time I went to teach school in Anaheim at St. Anthony Claret, it was Nativity School in El Monte. It was my first assignment. We were in the short skirts, we were in like a white blouse and a little veil. And that was just pretty quick. Like things changed quickly as far as I can remember back. And I don't think I really had enough of an understanding of church at that point in time to grasp the importance of what Vatican II was. We were in the novitiate when the Immaculate Heart Sisters, and that was probably the college I would have gone to, would have been Immaculate Heart College, yes, came back from a chapter. And actually, no, I was teaching 5th grade in Nativity, and they came back from their chapter, and they were a diocesan community, which means you're under the auspices of the local ordinary, who at that time was Cardinal McIntyre, a stockbroker from New York. And
is that what he had been?
He had been, yes. So maybe some of the theological grounding that someone else would have had, he might have had, but maybe not to the same depth. So they were not allowed to implement their chapter documents. And you know the story, don't you?
Well,
yeah.
I do know a little bit of it because I took a retreat up at what used to be their place. Yeah. And I know that they separated, they remained Catholic, but they separated and were no longer a congregation, and they took the property, and they were smart because they had done something with a property in Santa Barbara that they were allowed to keep or something.
I think, yeah, they are and were very astute women and tremendous leaders. Yes, they have their property in Santa Barbara, but it belongs now to they had to either renounce their acts of chapter and comply with what he wanted, or they had to choose to leave. And most of them chose to leave, and those that stayed splintered into 3 different groups. And at that point, the teacher across the hallway, who had the second 5th grade with me, had been a member of the community, and that summer had to make that decision that she wasn't going to remain an Immaculate Heart Sister. She couldn't comply with what was being asked of that community, that they could not live out the acts of their chapter. And I remember we prayed every day that there would be some amicable way in which this was settled. But that was the result, is that they had to sign and say they would comply with what he wanted, or they would not.
Now, did she have to stop teaching then?
No, she didn't have to stop teaching. No, they had to find jobs. Overnight, they had to find jobs. They staffed so many schools in this archdiocese. And I think if that happened today, what would happen then was that the diocese needed sisters to go into the schools that they had staffed. So all of the religious communities, ourselves included, were asked to give people, sisters, to staff the schools. And most of us did it. I think if this was happening today, there would not be sisters in those classrooms helping a school survive that could have survived if those women could have stayed teaching there.
So some of the teachers, some of the Immaculate Heart teachers were dismissed.
They decided that they would not sign the document. Right. Yes. So that meant that they were no longer recognized because they were a diocesan community where the local ordinary, the cardinal, would have more say. They were no longer members of the community, and
but that meant that they could no longer teach in those schools, and
that was a decision on the part of the archdiocese.
That they would no longer teach.
That they could not teach as sisters. This laywoman could teach,
no.
But their schools, they had to withdraw from the schools that they were in, and then like some of our sisters went to teach in St. Anthony's High School in Long Beach that they had staffed. Wow. Cathedral Chapel School in LA, we took that one over to providing principal and teachers, and that had been an Immaculate Heart school. They were.
Now, how did that feel? Like because you must have your hearts must have been with those sisters, and did it feel strange? I mean, you might not personally, you didn't personally have to do it because you were too young, but. It must have been a very hard decision. I mean, it's not a decision. It must have been very hard for other sisters to take the place of a sister who had been unjustly dismissed.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it would happen today. This, like the Leadership Conference of Women Religious today is, we belong to that organization, that group of women religious. I think would have taken a stronger stand and said, it is too bad that we are not willing to do or to staff, but for the most part, other religious communities of women did staff the schools. First of all, there's not enough of us anymore, we couldn't do that, but I don't believe we would do it today. And even at that age, I wasn't sure of all the dynamics of what was going on. And we prayed every day, but I don't think I understood what actually was happening to those women and what they were being asked to do that was really a violation of their conscience and of their acts of chapter.
Now, do you remember or do you know exactly what the argument was over? Like what in their chapter had been so alarming to...
First of all, their dress. They were going to wear ordinary dress. I don't really know. I can't remember more than that, but yeah.
Oh, it was the habit. That's right. They were the first. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure there was more to it, but right now I can't drop the...
Like it.
Yeah.
I have a book on it, written by one of them.
Anita Casberry, Witness to Integrity.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I have that book. I'll have to find that and read that. But they had a personal effect on your life because they taught you, and then you were a sister who had to be part of that replacement.
Well, no, it was Nativity School, and it was a Sister of St. Louis school that we staffed. But one of the teachers had been a former Immaculate Heart, and my first year there was her first year in lay clothes teaching in a school. I mean, she got the job. We didn't have an issue with it, but they weren't allowed if they wouldn't sign documents to stay in the schools that they had staffed, and they staffed many schools there. But I don't think we would do that today. We'd say, we can't take them over either.
Figure it out. Figure it out.
You broke it, you fixed it.
Yeah. How did your family feel about Vatican II? Your father, your mother?
Oh, well, my brothers, I don't think we're too much into it. And I don't think my mom and dad really were that in understanding of the dynamics and the documents and things like that.
But the liturgy changed, and the priests now faced the...
That wouldn't have been a problem.
Oh, okay.
That would not have been a problem to them. They would go along with that.
Yeah.
But not with the depth of understanding of the rationale or the theology.
Right.
Yeah.
because some people resist it, I think.
No.
One of the questions, one of the questions I do like to ask is about a crisis in faith. How do I say it here? Can you tell us about any crisis of faith? I talk here about people needing to hear about people's spiritual journeys, especially because they look to sisters as someone who's chosen a life, and I think they look for hope, even if they don't consciously verbalize it that way. You represent, whether you like it or not, you represent to people hope, I think. And I think it's soothing for people to know that it's just not a smooth ride. I think sometimes hearing about maybe a crisis of faith or a crisis of religious life or any kind of thing like that, either at the beginning of your journey when you may have questioned, did I make the right decision, or along the way. I don't know if you can speak to that.
Well, I would say for me, the decision to make final vows was a biggie. And it was like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? This is a huge choice. And the way the formation program was, you had 1 year as a postulant, which comes from the Latin word postulare, to ask, to see if you want to stay. Then the novitiate is 2 years, novice, beginner. And then after that point, we would have made first vows. And the first vows were temporary vows. And things have changed over the years. I think when we made the vows, it was for 3 years, but you could have asked for 2. To live out poverty, chastity, and obedience. And I didn't, I thought, okay, I can do this. Give it 2 more years, we'll see where this goes. And then you could renew the vows up until about 6 years. So being the kind of a person who likes to be sure about something before she invests herself in it, I took every advantage of all of those years, and now I'm at it's now or it's not going to happen. And I think for me, that was the year before, knowing that the next year would be the last time I could stretch this out, a time where I really got more in touch with a spiritual director, with looking at what was like blocking me or why. I mean, saying yes forever, well, this is, and I mean, my mind can go all over of all the implications and what might happen and how this, this could play out, versus being willing to believe that God is God in my life. And I mean, now I can speak a lot more theologically about what that means, given some of the education, the background that I've had since. But really, I mean, trust was a big issue. To be able to say, I think God is calling me to this. I'm relatively happy to do this forever. That's a big thing to ask. So I took all the time I could take, really engaged in what it meant. Can I do this? Do I want to do this? And ultimately, for me, it came down just to believing that God loves me, that if I can believe in that, then yes, it is a yes. But that was hard. I really have to say that it just wasn't, oh yeah, I'm going to do that next, and it's all set. So I played it out as far as I could. And really, I think, got to know myself better in terms of just, when I give my word, when I make a promise, I want to be faithful to it. And can I really do this? Do I want to? What might else happen in my future that might look better? I mean, I'm not beyond thinking of that way. So I did. So that last year was, I think, when I really got engaged in, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. Sister Judy and I made final vows together. Now, she obviously had no problem with meeting them. We didn't enter together, but yes, Sister Judy and I made vows together that year. And I'm trying to think, I think it was 75 or 79? I'm a little confused on the math right now, but yeah. So for me, that was hard. And then I think there have been other opportunities in life when you get to go away to study Like at one point I got asked to be the novice director, and I said no, I don't want to do it. I got called up here and met in what is Claire's office.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Sister Candace, and said, we would like you to be the novice director. And I said, well, I don't think I really want to do that. You know, I kind of like teaching. I'm pretty good at it too. I don't want to do it. She says, keep thinking.
And you did it.
No, I went away. I said, she can't make me do something I don't want to do. I don't know if I really want to do this. Nobody is novice director. I don't know. So then I came back again and I said, you know, I just don't think that I'm going to be good at it. I'm really good at it, and I enjoy the teaching that I'm doing. I was teaching junior high. And she says, well, keep thinking about, keep praying about it. But it had the opportunity for some further study. And I said, you know, I look forward to the study, but you know, if it doesn't seem right at the end of it. So she agreed that she was kind of like saying, yeah, it's okay, give it a try. So I went away to Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, where Claire had studied at, and spent 2 wonderful years there, and a formative spirituality program. But it was a time growing up too. I was like 3,000 miles away from home. Nobody knew what was going on. You know, there's a real sense of independence and trust. And the classes that I took, I mean, I still remember one of the scripture classes, and the professor was Demetrius Dumm, a Benedictine priest from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And his explanation based on John Courtney Murray's problem of evil on who God is, and he took the name Yahweh, and what it means is, I will be God as I will be God. And I mean, that was revelatory to me. And when I think in my own life today, you know, when we believe is, yeah, God is good, and God will be good. And then when we reach a time of struggle, I will be God as I will be God. Can you believe when it gets rough? Can you believe when it's hard? Can you stay with it? Can you let God be God in your life? And if you can, in that moment when God is not so imminent and not so important, still hold on, I think then we move to another way in which we really do grow closer to God. So it's that's a presence. It seems like God is not there, and then a new and another deeper way of knowing God. And I will always be grateful for that explanation or that way of seeing the name Yahweh and how much it means in growing deeper into letting God be God in your life. So I think I'm answering the question you asked me, which I don't remember what it is.
No, you are, because what I like is just, I ask a question just as it's really just a springboard into conversation.
Yeah, and I use that with so many different groups on retreats and things, and to me it was just, wow, is that what it means? I am who am, you know, that's what I learned in school. I am who am. That doesn't mean much, but I will be God as I will be God.
Not you, me,
Yeah.
you know, I.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So presence, immanence, transcendence, a new way of seeing God. So that was part of my experience at Duquesne, along as well being with other priests who were studying for working in seminaries, other women who were going to go back to their own communities to work in formation ministry. You know, being 3,000 miles away, and being, you know, having a sense that they trust me. Came home for Christmas and then for summers, and then went back the second year for the rest of the program.
And then in return, did you have to be the novice? Because they said you'll get training if you become the novice director.
Yeah, kind of. At that point, I thought, okay, I'll give it a try. I'll do it. So it was interesting.
Now you're allowed to say no. Like, don't you have to? If they ask you to do something, isn't the expectation that you'll say yes?
Well, I think it's the hope that you'll say yes. But I think if you're really miserable, I mean, I wasn't miserable. I was afraid. I was, you know, more certain in the skills that I had in the classroom than whatever formation ministry was going to call me to. I mean, I was honored to be asked, but I didn't think I really wanted to do it. I mean, so, I mean, I think if you really discerned that it was a no, I think there'd have to, you know, that there would be a conversation at least in our community, where, you know, that could change. And it's probably not as much that way anymore. In the past, probably, like the sisters who came out here to California, Yeah, and even the first assignment, we got our first assignment in this room. Mother Ronan was the superior, and she was sitting at a little desk over there, and Sister Bridget Ehlert, who's my group, came in first, and Bridget was going to be going to, I don't know if I think it was St. Bede's in La Canada, and she got her assignment, and then Bridget says to me, I was supposed to be going to Holy Name of Mary in San Dimas, and Bridget walks by me, she says, she thinks you're going to Nativity. I go, what? So when I get in here, Mother Ronan says, and you're going to be going to Nativity. I said, oh, okay. And I'm thinking, whatever had been original, now I'm going to Nativity. The problem was they did not have a room in the convent. It was a neighborhood house. The pastor wanted to put a trailer in the backyard for me. And the community said, no, we can't do that. So I ended up at Nativity in El Monte, because they didn't have, it was a neighborhood house, lovely little neighborhood house, but little being the adjective. So the community didn't think putting a trailer in the backyard was a solution.
No. I don't think you'd feel so great.
But it was like you'd get your changes on August 15th, and you just kind of, there's the paper, and that's where you're going.
Yeah.
But it's changed a lot since then. The invitation to be the formation director was many years after that.
Right.
Yeah, but she did want a yes, and
And also, it'd be hard to be, if you don't really yourself feel called to it, it'd be hard to do the job, so.
Yeah. But it changed. It was a really enriching experience, and with lots of other opportunities too. Yeah.
You know, it's funny, talking to all of you, I wonder what is or you might not know the answer, what's the last American, or I guess Irish if they came over on that program, but probably American, who joined, who made final vows with the Sisters of St. Louis? Who's the most recent?
Who's
the most recent one, or?
I'm trying to think.
What was the last time an American made final vows with the Sisters of St. Louis?
It would be Terry Dodge.
It would be Terry Dodge,
yeah, Terry.
okay.
No, sorry, take that back. Stacy Reineman, Sister Stacy Reineman, principal in Nativity in El Monte.
Oh, okay, I don't know her. Okay.
Okay, you need to interview her.
Okay. All right. So now she's in El Monte. Okay, because that's.
She's principal there. Amazing woman.
But more Irish sisters
one of my
didn't come
novices.
over. Oh, she's one of your novices. I'll talk to her.
I don't take credit for it though.
But she might have stayed because of you.
Or I might have left maybe too.
She might have thought, oh, you know, I think we've covered many of these, but one question I have to ask, and it's one of the things we talked about that initiated this project, is that move, and it's kind of what we're talking about now, from the global north to the global south, the kind of global south coming up and the global north. I mean, with the Irish sisters, and I talked to them and they say there are no more Irish. The Irish are not professing, they're not joining religious life. So there's sort of a light fading and then a new light rising. And I just don't know how you feel about that, or what comment you have to make about that. Or
Well, I think it is the reality. In some ways it's a real shift. There's a sense, of loss, of letting go, of diminishment, that can, sometimes I feel sad about it, and it's like, who else?
Yeah.
But pretty much, I wouldn't say all the communities in this country are in that same situation, but for the most part, yes. And I don't know, sitting here today in this chair, it's part of God's plan. We didn't do anything wrong, but I think it's hard in this day and in this age to say, yeah, I want to be a Catholic sister. You have to be pretty mission driven. You have to see, what's available. Does it match my skills? Or you have to be really touched by the lives of those women and want to engage in that too. I find myself sad at times. You think, well, it's really a lot of letting go, but I'm not in charge. It'd be different if I was, but I'm not.
It's kind of the motivation behind this, because I thought, let's get the sisters on film,
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I have had opportunities to go to international meetings for the community, and I think the sisters who have gone from Ireland to Nigeria and to Ghana and worked there have built really the foundations, I don't mean buildings, but of faith in the women. And pretty much, I would say across the board, the ones who join us and who choose to stay are fine women and have really a lot of gifts and talents, and very grateful to the sisters who came from Ireland to work, to be with them. And one of the sisters who has died fairly recently, Sister Carmel Dodd, Irish and a doctor, who worked in Nigeria for many years, just died very recently. And I mean, with each death like that, especially for the sisters in Africa who knew her, lived with her, admired her, it's hard, like they would know her better than I would. She died in Ireland. She's been in Ireland for quite a while, but had been a doctor in Nigeria. Well, Ireland, and I think she was in Nigeria mostly, I think.
Yeah, they feel like they lost their leader
Mother,
or whatever.
Yeah.
That's cool that she was a doctor.
Yeah, we've had a number of sisters that were doctors, trained in Ireland and then sent to the missions.
See, that's we talked with Karen, that's really, because PhDs, doctors, really great backgrounds.
Yeah, we had lots of opportunities for education.
Yeah. I was wondering, is there anything that you would like to share about being a Sister of St. Louis, or even living out the charism and how you see you do that? But anything, or any other funny story, or anything that you had thought on the way here, you're like, I should remember to tell them that I don't know, to ask you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I really have to say that I enjoyed teaching, and when I got asked to do formation work, it was like, I taught junior high, and it takes a certain kind of personality, I think, to work with junior high students. And at the beginning of every school year, and I was in St. Anthony Correct in Anaheim, it was a double grade school at that point, and probably like classes, 45 students in a class in a double grade school. But I got to the point where I thought, I would give my speech at the beginning of the year, and that first chair right in the middle row, there's always select student that gets to sit there. And I would have had these students in 7th grade for some subjects. The nun always got the religion classes, and I'm English major, and we divided up the science book because none of us were scientists. But anyway, this boy is here in the front seat, and I'm going, you're really lucky to be in my class, my 8th grade this year. You just do not know how fortunate you are. And there's only one rule that I really want you to get in your heads. This is no longer a democracy. This is a dictatorship. And if I am the dictator, the only thing you have to do is keep me happy. And the kid in the front row he looks at me and says, under his breath, you're lucky I like you. I just started laughing.
He said, I'm not so sure I like you?
No, he says, you're lucky I like you. It was Tony. I'd had him in the 7th grade. Later that year, he tried to set the trash can on fire. But you could be playful with that age group, and you had to have a sense of humor. I just burst out laughing, and then I am lucky that he likes me, and I'm glad he does. But it was, to me, teaching, I really enjoyed it, and especially the junior high, because they can get a joke, and, it was delightful. And that's when I got asked to do the formation work, to let that go. So, that was something. And then I also enjoy working with the girls in the high school. Especially the ones who have, kind of some issues. And over the years, things happen. In one story, I think, and I'm not letting anything out of the bag here, it was after a 3-day weekend. And I have one of the seniors who's been in a couple scrapes already, but whom I've helped, and who, has a little bit of trouble at home between parents and stuff. Anyway, she comes into my office, it's after Halloween. She puts her elbows on my desk, and she says, Sister, am I going to get expelled? I said, is there a context to this question? It's the Monday after a 3-day weekend. Do you want to tell me what happened on the weekend, or does Miss Thinnes already know what happened on the weekend? So she spills out this story. I said, well, the good news is it didn't happen on school grounds. The bad news is it sounds like some of your classmates were involved in this, so you're on your own. But I thought, how simple when you would come into the counselor's office, the nun's office, and ask, am I going to get expelled?
That shows such trust.
Well, we'd worked together on a number of issues. She did trust me, but
But that's
I mean,
a real testament to you.
Yeah, but it's those kind of things where you think, oh, I am making it, and she still comes by.
And your spiritual formation training would directly affect the counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also have a background in counseling too. I'm a LCSW too as well, so that helps.
So you didn't scream, "You did what?"
No, I said, is there a context to the question?
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah. So I mean, I think just enjoying for the most part what I do. I'm currently on our leadership team, and so that's a whole other dimension as well as being in school. It's a little busy at times.
So you and Sister Judy and
Sister
Terry Dodge.
and Sister Teresa Markey. I don't know if you've met Teresa yet. Sister
I
Teresa,
have.
she used to teach in a high school, but it would have been before your daughter was
Okay.
there.
I think I've met her, but
Very
I'm
good
not sure.
English
Yeah.
teacher.
Okay. Well, I was here when you got inducted because I got the
Oh.
corsages, so
Oh, that's right.
I'm trying to
Teresa,
remember
Very thin.
because Maura was
And,
there. Yeah.
Blondie colored hair. Yeah, that's Teresa.
Oh, Teresa, who I
Teresa?
pray with. Teresa.
Markey, probably,
I
yes.
just
and
didn't
she's-
know. I just didn't know her last name.
Yeah, Teresa.
Teresa. I know Teresa.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's
She
good.
sometimes has to have oxygen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's Teresa.
Nice.
Those are the four of us.
Oh, great.